Boycotting. Hola, mi gente. Welcome to another episode of Objections. We are happy that you're here, even if you're not really here yet, because you haven't seen your phone ping that we're on. But we are welcoming you anyway. I am Jen from On the Block with Jen, and my partner is
Frank with Talk with Frank Goodin.
So let's just pay the bills at the beginning. This is Objections. Please subscribe, like, share, let your homies know what we're talking about here. You know, Objections, we welcome everyone from all walks of life to jump on our panel and object with either myself or Frank. No feelings will be hurt. And if they are, later on, we'll go to dinner and do our laundry and forget about everything that happened here, right? So if it's your first time here, welcome, welcome, welcome. If you're a regular, hey, homie. So you can, the link is posted in the comments. You can click that link, jump on at any point in time. If you get triggered by something and you're like, I object, jump on that link and let us know who you object with and why. You can object respectfully, but passionately. Okay. Either way, but just keep it respectful. Okay. You can yell. We yell in here sometimes. We yell. We get loud, but respectfully, right? We don't call each other out of our names and things like that. And you know, the bottom line is just to share points of views. We're not changing minds here today, and if we do, it's a bonus. So again, welcome, welcome, welcome. Please subscribe to not only On the Block with Jen, but Talk with Frank Goodin, because we do objections on both pages. One's here, one's there, one's here, one's there, okay? So we decided to do something else. So tonight's topic, I say tonight depending on what part of the world you are, but it's probably the morning for you. So good morning across the world. Today's topic, or tonight's topic, or this afternoon's topic, whichever, it is LGBTQ plus advocacy being weaponized. Is the LGBTQ plus advocacy being weaponized? And I know people are like, huh? What? I'm very specifically talking about Dave Chapelle once again, because this is like the story that hasn't gone away. It's going and going and going, and then he'll respond, and then the LGBTQ will respond, and then he'll respond, and the LGBTQ will respond. Now, I use that loosely because I'm sure there's a large demographic of the LGBTQ who gives zero damns about this issue, right? Everything doesn't affect everybody. So I use the term loosely. But there is a demographic that is on a witch hunt for Dave Chapelle. And I call it a witch hunt because they're not, it seems to me like they're not even sitting down to have a conversation. They claim they contacted him for a conversation. He says, no, the hell they didn't. So we have those two sides. With that said, Chappelle said, I'll be more than willing to sit down with you, but you will not summons me. And I like that. That was gangster. And I think that's fair. Right? I'll come talk to you, but you will not summons me. You will not say what I do and when, because we're all adults, right? We're not subordinate to each other just because we have a gripe. So I did that. Chappelle said, I'll come talk to you, but you will not summons me. And I will come talk to you only if you watch the controversial The Closer, his last special, where he did this whole monologue about his friend who passed away, who was a transgender woman. So if you've been under a rock, Dave Chapelle released a Netflix special, his last, he claims, called The Closer. And he addressed his beefing with the LGBTQ community for a while now, right? And unfortunately, or maybe fortunately for marketing, the LGBTQ plus community, some of them, not all, were still really, really upset and claimed, and this is the claim, and I think this claim is serious. They claim that Dave Chapelle is advocating for violence versus transgender women, specifically Black transgender women. That's a heavy accusation, right? Now, I saw The Closer. I didn't think it was anything that they're accusing him of it being, but I can't be offended for other people and I cannot be offended for other people. It works both ways, right? Something offends you and it doesn't offend me doesn't mean it's not legitimate. Right. So here we are this evening or this morning or this afternoon, whatever part of the world you're in, on Objections with Frank and Jen. Please subscribe. Please like or dislike and hit the notification bell so you know when we're on. So, Frank,
Mm-hmm.
hello.
Hey, what's happening? And I say, please like. I don't even ask people to dislike. I know, just like it. Even if you don't like it, like it.
Okay, fine. I'll take that. But you know, some people are like, I gotta dislike you no matter what. So I'm like, do you feel good about disliking stuff?
Right. I got
Get
you.
your
I got
projection on, homie.
you.
So, all right, guys. So glad to see you here.
Yeah, glad to be
So
here.
let's get into this. And I know I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna have to replay this. And I don't know, should I play the video now? Because the video is super, super juicy.
Mm-hmm. Let's maybe hold up a minute. Maybe I'll say a couple
Okay,
things.
okay, I'll hold up a minute. I want to throw it to you, and then I
Mhm.
want to talk about specifically who I'm talking about because this
Right.
isn't the entire LGBTQ community. So I want to address who is leading the charge
Mm-hmm.
on this cancellation.
Right.
So please, Frank.
Yeah, so when we talk about it, it's LGBTQ plus advocacy in general. We know we're talking about a serious thing. Like Jen and I are fully aware that this is something that is very close to people, members in that community, and maybe the family members and friends of the people in this community. And it's a very just a serious thing because we understand, even though we might not necessarily know all of the facts and all the details, we do understand that this is a marginalized community in society. And so there is, like many other marginalized communities in the society, there's absolutely, very definitely a need for advocacy, education, advocacy, awareness that, they may not necessarily be treated the same way as members of the majority community or people who are not in this community in certain situations. And so, Jen and I are 100% cognizant that this is something that, is here. It's been here for many, many years, rightfully so. And so, you do have this component that's very necessary, is a good way to put it. Very, very necessary. So, when we look at it, I think, most adults, most of the people, probably our viewers, are aware of how serious these issues can be. And so the question really becomes, at what point is there a line? Where is there a line, number one, of advocacy? Is there such a thing as taking things too far? I think that's something that can be talked about on people on one side or the other. And then when we start thinking about things in the context of this social media environment, YouTube environment, um, the cancel culture, if you will, and then even related movements that have some synergy. For example, there might be a little synergy here with the Me Too movement. There might be a bit of synergy with other movements as well. Um, you know, what is the line, and how nuanced is this? And is this something that even there's a collective unanimous or same way of thinking about it by members within that community, within the LGBTQ community itself? Um, are there members who think differently? Are there members who think, yes, absolutely, it's being weaponized, and are there members who are saying, no, 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 we're not taking it far enough? Because when we talk about Dave Chapelle, for example, the special, and I watched it as well, um, we both saw, to this particular point, we saw what I consider to be a very authentic, heartfelt, truthful story that he told about his friend who was a member of this community um, who suffered some serious things, and he showed to me amazing empathy for that person, and just told a heartfelt, from my perspective, story about it. And from what he shared, and then what we saw in social media, we saw the people around this person supporting him, saying, "Hey, I, I didn't have any problems with his jokes or his stance or who." And in my opinion, this is the person speaking. He honored this person. And so, but then you got people who just not hearing that at all. and they heard some other things maybe in this special that are straight up. They're like, let's get on the cancel bandwagon. Somebody's about to get canceled.
Who's next? Who's next?
We see who it is. It's time to jump on. Oh, we got one right here. Let's cancel Dave. We don't, and they immediately took some sides. And then when Dave in a later special somewhere he released a part of it, he says that it appears that there's something going on here where most of the members of this community are not. He says this isn't really their agenda. Rather, it's the agenda of corporate interests, is how he put it. That brings in another whole. Let's talk about this, because is it that it's the everyday person? Or I was just recently having a discussion with someone else about this. Is it something where maybe there are members of that community who have an agenda that might be, they just have an agenda, and so there's some other things going on and we just don't know. We want to have this conversation about, well, just how authentic is this outrage, and let's characterize it, and let's really be as analytical about it, so that we can really drill down into what's important about it. So I just kind of wanted to maybe talk a little bit about the overall situation that we find ourselves in when we ask this question: is it being weaponized? Is it possible that it can be weaponized? What does a weaponization of this issue look like? So, I just want to kind of bring these things up and maybe throw it back to you for any responses before we dive in.
Yeah, it deserves analyzing because, like you said, it's layered, it's nuanced, it's layered. There's so many sides to it. And what we want at the end of the day, I think what everybody wants is people to be safe, to be who they are and love who they want, right? That's really it. Like, if we had to simplify, we just want everyone to be safe, respected, in a safe space where they can love and be who they want to be. But there's so many interests and there's so many agendas that it becomes messy. I'm very interested in what you said. There could be a corporate interest. Can you give me an example of what a corporate interest would be?
See, and unfortunately, no, because I'm only kind of quoting what Dave Chapelle mentioned when he said, and I wish I clipped it, and I might be able to go somewhere and clip it or find the thing real quick and just and play it on the screen. Where he says that this isn't about the actual community. He goes, this is about corporate interest and what I can and cannot say. You remember when he said that? I don't know if you saw that. Yeah. So that's what I'm talking about. So it's interesting that he brings that up. And if he's being authentic, if he's just not trying to throw out a red herring and say, look over there somewhere, if that's the case, then it begs the question, the one that you just asked me. Wow. Okay. Well, what kind of corporate interests might there be in something like this? What would that agenda look like? So unfortunately, I can't answer that question directly.
Okay. Off the record, you have an orange shirt on? Is that orange or red?
Oh, it's right in between. It's like it's red orange.
True story for anybody watching. I was trying to dodge our vibe because every time Frank and I show up, we're in the same color.
Right.
So I picked up, true story, a burnt orange shirt, button down. And I said, no, I'll go lighter colors. Had I did that, we would have been twinning once again.
Once again.
I'm like, I know that ain't no dark orange.
Okay, and it absolutely is. It's a burnt orange.
Something that happens here on Objections. Don't mind.
I don't know what that, and so it's good you double check that, just for the heck of it, because people think we'll be trying to color coordinate like we're in high school or something. And it just happens. It just happens.
That's funny. I'm like, is that burnt orange?
Yes,
if you guys just joined us, welcome. Subscribe and hit the notification bell. Today we're talking about is the LGBTQ plus advocacy being weaponized, specifically the transgender community against Dave Chapelle. Now, I don't mean to separate the transgender from the entire LGBTQ plus, but it seems like transgender women are leading the charge to cancel Dave Chapelle. So I want to be specific. Mm-hmm. There's a transgender woman named Ashley Marie Preston. And it reminds me of a joke that Chef Chapino said one time, when he asked us, did somebody make one of them a leader? Who's the leader? Who's the leader of like the LGBTQ, the gays? Who's the leader? And I laughed it off, but now it seems like there's a leader. And her name is Ashley Marie Preston, and she is spearheading the cancel mob against Dave Chapelle. She is a Black transgender woman. And there's something very interesting going on with her because she speaks very eloquently, right? She presents well. She's on MSNBC now. They're inviting her on CNN. So she has become the voice. Who appointed her? I don't know, but she took the charge and she's become the voice. Fast forward, people started digging into her past. And about 9-10 years ago, they found some very, very scandalous tweets, right? You know how that goes on Twitter. Everything's forever. It's like a tattoo, right? So they went back 10 years ago, and they found her tweets, and they were really, really bad tweets, like really bad. Like, I have a potty mouth. I'm from New York, so that's, we breathe, we curse, right? But this transgender woman, wow, right? And I have a clip. So what they're trying to do is say, wait a minute, why is this transgender woman, Ashley Maria Preston, leading the charge against Dave Chapelle when she has said so many disgusting things about different ethnicities and gay people herself, right? Now, she identifies as a transgender woman. She's part of the LGBTQ plus, right? But 10 or so years ago, she was very, very, very foul-mouthed and derogatory towards not only gays, Mexicans, Asians. And we're going to play a clip because someone put this together. I did not. I just found it interesting. Someone put together a little montage of her advocating for the LGBTQ plus community, specifically transgender women. But then someone added all the tweets from back in the day.
Wow.
You, and I'm going to play it a couple of times during this episode, but I want you to hear it. Hey, Bolo. Bolo just jumped on.
Bolo.
I'm going to play this clip. It's only 2 minutes, but I want you to hear her advocating versus her thoughts 10 years ago. And then we'll get into her response after being exposed, okay? And then we'll get into what you think. So here's Ashley Marie Preston, the transgender woman who's leading the charge against Dave Chapelle being canceled. And tell me what you guys think. Yeah.
My entire career, everything that I've done has been about pushing boundaries. It has been about holding people accountable.
I just cussed that Asian bitch clean the fuck out.
I'm Ashley Marie Preston, and I'm the organizer for the Stand Up and Solidarity Rally.
My entire career, everything that I've done has been about pushing boundaries. It has been about holding people accountable.
I just cussed that Asian bitch clean the fuck out.
We expect more.
You mess up my order and then blame me? English is my first language, bitch.
And so,
I know it's a lot to ask in California, but speak fucking English. Yeah, I said it.
We also pour social equity into these spaces. We
just broke my phone on this Asian bitch's head.
Dave Chapelle doesn't get to suck all of the light out of that.
And so the thing that I felt most troubled by is
Latino and Asian businesses need to stop being rude and fucking disrespectful.
They don't have the same equity.
This Asian nigga in Subway got a fat ass.
They don't have the same opportunity.
He almost looks like a bitch from behind. Hashtag shaking my head.
We will no longer stay silent.
Asian hoes act like they won't get karate chopped in they motherfucking throat.
Just to be clear,
in real life, I'd smash your fucking head in like a can of A&W root beer. Dick Rider.
Real violence that is by the trans community, for the trans community.
Bro, I would beat the dog shit out of you. Dick Rider.
To understand intersectionality and what it means.
I have Asian friends, but they some motherfucking weirdos sometimes. Hashtag I said it, but we all think it.
Obviously, Ashley Marie Preston is a great advocate.
Furry slipper wearing ass fuck boy. Keep pretending for the internet. Dick Rider.
Ashley Marie Preston has proven herself as an activist, also a friend and a loved one to many people in her embarkment on activism. So thank you so much.
These motherfuckers, faggot cocksuckers, fat Mexican piss blonde Miss Piggy looking bitch. I love strippers, not in like a gay way. I love gay men, but this county clerk at Window G is a motherfucking faggot.
Thank you so much for the invitation.
That is the last time I helped that faggot fucker.
So for those of us who are standing in solidarity with the trans employees
and other Damn, Asian almost hit me while crossing.
Is that
Well,
the
damn.
end? Wow. I'm gonna do it like Flavor Flav.
Well,
Wow.
damn. So let me just say this really quick, right? There is the factor of this was 10 years ago. It was 10 years ago that she felt like this about Asians, Mexicans, and gay people. This was 10 years ago. This is 10 years ago, right? So let's put that on the table. What's disturbing to me is that, and we've all done it. We've all gotten into a verbal fisticuffs online with someone. You say something to me, I say it back. You say it to me, I say it back. What's disturbing about these tweets was that this was casual conversation and thought. This was, I went out today and this Asian motherfucker and this Mexican motherfucker and this gay motherfucker, and I just broke my phone on an Asian bitch's head and these Latin bitches. This was casual conversation, which to me is more disturbing than we're in a verbal fisticuffs. If you come at me, I'm gonna throw it back, right? So the response that Ashley Marie Preston had was, hey, this is 10 years ago and you're not going to let me not grow out of it. I grew, and this has nothing to do with me leading the charge on Dave Chapelle. So I want to leave it there. We have a special guest, official Ty Rivera, the best LGBTQ comedian in the world.
All right. Welcome.
In the world.
Welcome.
Sorry. I just came from the gym, so the community is going to read me about this hair. I know that. So I'm ready for the LGBT hate.
Okay, if you showed up bald, I'd be happy.
But yeah,
okay?
I came in right as you guys. Thank you. But yeah, I just came from the gym, and I came in right when you guys were watching the video from, her name's Ashley Marie Preston.
Ashley Marie Preston.
You know. Yeah, she's got a lot of nerve. That's the way I feel about it, you know, because at least Dave Chapelle was trying to start a conversation. And with the trans community right now, I feel like trans activists are really messing it up for everyday trans people, because a lot of the stuff that trans activists make a big deal about, if you know actual trans people, they're not concerned about those things. You know, the average trans person wasn't concerned with Dave Chappelle's special. The average trans person isn't tuned into Dave Chapelle like that. But then the activists jump in and make it the biggest thing in the world. And it's like actual trans people are just like us. You know, they really are trying to pay their bills, take care of their families. All the same stuff we deal with is what they deal with. But in my opinion, the trans activists minimalize the trans struggle by turning it into these things that really don't matter, and these fights that really nobody wants to take on.
Wow. That's a great point. That's a great point, because how do you feel about the entire grouping of LGBTQ plus? Do you think that all those letters that represent those people, do they all have the same plight, or are they kind of different?
Well, for me, it's very different, you know, because I've had a lot of trans friends throughout my life. I have lifelong trans friends. And their problems are a lot different than what I go through. You know, like as a gay man, I have the choice of not addressing it. And most people aren't really thinking about that. So even though I know how gay I am in my head, the average person does not. So the average person will just see me as just another guy on the street. Where with the trans person, in a lot of cases, you are going to know, no matter how beautiful they are, you will be able to tell in some way, you know? And so you know, they have to deal with a different type of discrimination than I do. And I get when they say that, you know, things are more dangerous for them. That's something I've dealt with firsthand with my friends, where, you know, like we'd be out just, sometimes it would be like, you know, after the club and you're just going to Denny's or something like everybody else does. And then there's a table next to you that notices that, you know, there's trans women at the table. And then that turns into a thing where it's like, you know, oh, that's a man. And then it's a whole situation, you know. We would have that stuff happen to us. Like now things have changed a lot. But when I first came out, you know, because I've been out since like the 90s. And that's when I started hanging out with my trans friends. They were some of the first people I met in the community. And I would have to see that, and in some cases, you know, stand up for them, even dealing with the police in a lot of cases. You know, people talk about how people don't feel safe with the police. In the trans community, that happens a lot, because what'll happen is the police will ask for everybody's IDs. Then they'll notice that this woman, what appears to be a woman, on her ID says male, says M, and suddenly they'll start misgendering them just to be disrespectful. So it is different. I'm not really down with the grouping, even though I know why they do it, and that's just the strength in numbers.
Okay, so those issues are very real, obviously, right? But do you think that Ashley Marie Preston is saying Dave Chappelle is the closer, and Dave Chappelle's point of view, or comedy? Because I don't really think it's a point of view, more so it's comedy, right?
Mm-hmm.
She's saying that his comedy is encouraging the violence that you just described. Do you think that there's a chance that maybe we're not seeing it? Maybe there is a way that his comedy is doing that?
Well, this is something I've given a lot of thought to, and I watched The Closer twice because I wanted to, I watched it once on my own, no opinions, because I watched it the night that it came out. They said Dave Chappelle's Closer is coming out at midnight. I happened to be awake at like 3 a.m. that morning, and I was like, all right, let me check it out. So I checked it out. I paused because I wanted to do like an actual video about it right then. But then I was like, let me see what the conversation is about this. So I waited a couple days. Then after I saw the buzz, I was like, maybe I missed something. Let me watch it again. And I don't think that it's encouraging that at all. I think what pisses everybody off right now, especially the activists and the people online, is that Dave Chapelle did call out. I think they're trying to call attention away from the fact that Dave Chapelle did call out that Daphne Dorman, who is the trans woman that Dave was friends with, actually committed suicide after being bullied by online activists and the online trans community, which is something I've gone through. I just have a thicker skin. But, I've definitely felt like, okay, I guess everybody hates me right now. I've had people online, specifically trans people. I don't just mean people in general. Specifically trans people get mad at me and tell me that I'm gay, and they hope that I get AIDS and die. Like, that's one thing I had this one particular trans person tell me. I mean, I've dealt with the worst side of that, and I've really gotten into it with people online. So it's not like I was just completely innocent, but at the same time, it's like, really a lot of people telling you that kind of stuff. I can see how somebody like Daphne Dorman, that's maybe a little bit more vulnerable mentally, couldn't deal with it, and I think that that's what they're trying to call attention away from. Don't pay attention to that. Pay attention to Dave Chappelle's words, because Dave Chapelle is the problem, not us. We can never be the problem.
Right. LJ, hi LJ, made a great point. The comment is Ashley Marie Preston was pretty grown 10 years ago, meaning not a child. Do you think that she should get the pass and everybody just concentrate on what Dave Chapelle is doing? Do you think it's possible to grow from those thoughts and ideas in 10 years? Possible impact? What do you think?
Well, what I get growth, because I've had a lot of growth, and I've said things online years ago that, the difference is I don't care. People can mention it and I'll be like, yeah, I said it, I don't care. But at the same time, I definitely acknowledge that people can grow, but I don't think she's the best face for what she's trying to do right now.
That's a perfect answer, because I feel the same way. I'm like, just not, if they're gonna pick someone else, please pick someone else, because I found her very dismissive and unapologetic. She's like, you're not gonna bring this up 10 years later, and you're not gonna kill my growth, and I'm not going anywhere, honey. Like, she's literally said, I'm not going anywhere. The Chappelle thing is going to stick, and I'm going to lead the charge. What I found interesting was that now it's turning into, regarding Netflix and Dave Chappelle, it's turning into we don't even want him canceled. We want this at Netflix for transgender people, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So I'm like, okay, now I'm confused as to what you want. Is this about Chappelle making violence against transgender women increase, or is this about you want your own bathroom? And I don't mean to minimize it, but you want your own bathroom and you want extra writing time. So it's what is it that you want? It's getting confusing. Even if I wanted to be an advocate, what t-shirt do I wear?
What t-shirt do I wear?
Because I don't know. It's like you have to have an eraser board picket sign because it's like changing every week. Like, wait, this one? No, okay, this one.
Yeah, well, you know, the problem with the trans community right now, specifically when it comes to in general, is they want perfect representation and they want perfect portrayal. And that hasn't been possible for any marginalized group in this country. It just hasn't been. You know, being Latino, sometimes people are mad because of the way we're presented. Black people aren't always happy with the way that they're presented. You know, forever in TV and movies, if you're Latino or Black, you're going to be either a gangbanger, you know what I mean? Like that's what it's been. And now it's starting to change a bit more, but that's been what it's been for years and years and years. So trans people come in, and for a lot of mainstream America, trans is new. So they come in wanting this perfect representation, and it's like, welcome to the club. Everybody wants perfect representation.
What do you think about, do you think my question is an exaggeration when I say, is it being weaponized? Because I think, to me, when I think of weapon, I think of, you don't want to correct behavior. You don't want an apology. You want to destroy. And I feel like they want to destroy Chappelle, destroy, you know, make him not make any more money, things like that. That's how I see it, because it's so vitriolic. I'm like, do you want to sit with him or no? Do you want him to care or no? It's just like, die, die, die. You know what I mean? So do you think weaponized is an exaggeration? Do you think I'm being melodramatic?
I personally don't. No, I don't think you are at all, because that is what it is. It's, you know, it's not a matter of wanting to have a conversation, even misrepresenting. Like Dave Chapelle came out and said that they didn't actually ask him to have a meeting, that he wasn't invited to a meeting. So why are you telling people that you want to have that you invited him to a meeting when you didn't invite him to a meeting? I had this happen to me a couple years ago, no, it was like a year and a half ago now, where the LGBT community here in Vegas was mad at me over some jokes that I did at a show. And so they were demanding a meeting with me. And then I called it out publicly and was like, you know, these particular groups are demanding that I have a meeting with them before I do my next show. And then one of the representatives from that particular group went on social media and said that they had requested no meeting with me. And I was like, well, why are you doing that? You know, because like you clearly had requested a meeting with me. I wouldn't just make that up out of nowhere. I didn't, you know, and like, it's playing dirty, and that is a weaponization when you're playing dirty like that. Otherwise, you're just having an honest conversation.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I've had that happen to me as well. And this woman, Ashley Marie Preston, said she reached out to him 3 times, right? So 3 times to Chappelle's "no one told me anything" is a huge difference. If you're just tuning in, hey everybody, good to see you. Please subscribe, hit the notification bell. You are on right now. Objections on the Block with Jen, talk with Frank Goodin, and Ty Rivera from Unbothered, and he's also a stand-up comedian and part of the LGBTQ plus community. So he is here as the authority. Okay, fuck what you heard. Okay, I like to talk about people with the people in the room, unlike a lot of people, you know what I'm saying, because I'm not the pro. So back to, I don't know, I'm so like on this woman, because I can't believe the audacity. It's the audacity for me, like the kids say. So, you know, a lot of the things that she said were heavy. And you guys are just tuning in, I will, because I see a lot of people coming in the room now. I'm going to replay this really quick. Maybe I'll skip through it. But I'm talking about Ashley Marie Preston. She is the transgender woman who is spearheading the cancellation of Dave Chapelle. And she's the one meeting with CNN and NBC. So she's blowing up behind this. Now she's claiming, oh, I'm not going to mention Dave Chapelle anymore, but I don't believe her. So let me run back this video really, really quickly for those of you just coming in the room. And you tell me what you think about my question. Is advocacy being weaponized?
Rally. My entire career, everything that I've done has been about pushing boundaries. It has been about holding people accountable.
I just cussed that Asian bitch clean the fuck out.
I'm Ashley Marie Preston, and I'm the organizer for the Stand Up and Solidarity Rally. My entire career, everything that I've done has been about pushing boundaries. It has been about holding people accountable.
I just cussed that Asian bitch clean the fuck out.
We expect more.
You mess up my order and then blame me? English is my first language, bitch.
And so
I know it's a lot to ask in California, but speak fucking English. Yeah, I said it.
We also pour social equity into these spaces. We
Just broke my phone on this Asian bitch's head.
Dave Chapelle doesn't get to suck all of the light out of that.
And so the thing that I felt most troubled by is
Latino and Asian businesses need to stop being rude and fucking disrespectful.
they don't have the same equity.
This Asian nigga in Subway got a fat ass.
They don't have the same opportunity.
He almost looks like a bitch from behind. Hashtag shaking my head.
We will no longer stay silent.
Asian hoes act like they won't get karate chopped in they motherfucking throat.
Just to be clear,
In real life, I'd smash your fucking head in. Like a can of A&W root beer. Dick Rider.
real violence that is by the trans community, for the trans community,
Bro, I would beat the dog shit out of you. Dick Rider.
to understand intersectionality and what it means.
I have Asian friends, but they some motherfucking weirdos sometimes. Hashtag I said it but we all think it.
Obviously, Ashley Marie Preston is a great advocate.
Furry slipper wearing ass fuck boy. Keep pretending for the internet. Dick Rider.
Ashley Marie Preston has proven herself as an activist, also a friend and a loved one to many people in her embarkment on activism. So thank you so much.
These motherfuckers. Faggot cocksuckers. Fat Mexican piss blonde Miss Piggy looking bitch. I love strippers. Not in like a gay way. I love gay men, but this county clerk at Window G is a motherfucking faggot.
Thank you so much for the invitation.
That is the last time I helped that faggot fucker.
So for those of us who are standing in solidarity with the trans employees,
Another. Damn. Asian almost hit me while cross.
Okay. It's just so wonderful to listen to, isn't it? So, again, Ashley Marie Preston says this is 10 years ago, and now I'm more than capable of being the voice for the transgender women. It goes back to something that Frank said, which was interesting. I think that all marginalized communities, we all go through stuff, right? But then this thing happens called, the phrase that was coined, the oppression Olympics, right? What I find shocking is that not only a Black woman, but a Black transgender woman is so hateful towards other marginalized communities, including a community that she's a part of. I think that's what's shocking to me. And I don't want to like burn people at the stake, but I do not believe the growth thing. It looks like an act to me. The Aretha Franklin gown was amazing. I like the turban. The pearls were cute, right? But I'm just not buying it. I think that she's doing it for fame and fortune, although she claims she's not going to talk about Dave Chapelle anymore. I doubt that. So anybody coming in, what do you think about that? If you want to join the panel, please come on, like, subscribe, whatever. Frank, you've been quiet. I smell the wood burning. What do you have to say now that you've been enlightened? Because Frank came in like, I don't know, I'm not sure.
Right. It's funny. So I find it really interesting that really like immediately she owned up to the comments. Like I didn't know whether or not at some point she would just deny that and be like, no, I didn't, these are not my tweets, but apparently she has she's owned them. She's like, hey, I said that. And those are very, just like what was mentioned, those are some very hard to explain comments. I don't think that we should be surprised when we see, like, one of the comments was, is she allowed to outgrow these things that she's saying? And that's part of what she used in her defense. We shouldn't be surprised that people are holding something that you may have said, especially something like this 10 years ago, to holding you to account, because we've seen this in the past. We've seen how, for a very high profile example of the comedian who had the Oscars, Kevin Hart, people called him to account with the quickness once they found some of those old, jokes that he said. And these were jokes, not necessarily things that were, directed. He was telling jokes, but you called him to the carpet on him, and he paid a price. From my understanding, he really wanted to be a host and he decided to, in order to kind of just keep people from, from that turning into something huge, he's like, hey, I'll just chill out, I'll step to the side, and I'm not going to host after being invited. So it's just interesting. I think we should be surprised that this stuff is happening. I mean, theoretically, yes, people should be allowed to grow. At the same time, I think you stated it perfectly. How does this make you somehow like someone, even she should have known, hey, these are gonna come out. I'm look at me. I'm the it person. She should have known. But what I want to do is kind of ask you a question. What's your name again? I'm sorry, I forgot it.
Ty.
Say again.
Ty.
I wanted to ask you. You mentioned something that kind of what I mentioned or alluded to when we started right before you came on, which is this thing where sometimes it seems as if the quote unquote leadership or the activists may be speaking on things that aren't necessarily being resonated by just members of the community. And that was one of the first things that you said. And so I'm wondering, what is your take on that? Like, what would be a reason or some reasons for this apparent disconnection, maybe, where you have leadership that you mentioned a bunch of times just blowing something up, and the people in the community, the regular members who are not high profile, could care less in a way of speaking. Do you think there's some reasons for that disconnect, or like how is something like that happening?
I honestly think, like how everybody likes to throw around the word privilege, that speaks to the privilege of the activist. Because when you're an activist and it's your job to basically just start problems, then you're disconnected from the average person. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like the average person, it's like that with every community, like you get activists a lot of times where like the general public is like, yeah, I'm not worried about that. I also think it's political, because they do have a political agenda. They've got to keep money coming in. So, I mean, like, is it really helping? Like, yeah, it's helping the people that are on the streets if you address like the way trans people are treated in everyday life. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to the legislation with bathrooms, for example, well, that's more of a political thing. So then you can get the politicians on your side because you're like, okay, now we can pick a pony in this way. And I think a lot of times that's what it comes down to, is the politics of it, and because I mean, like I said, I've been hanging out with trans people since the 90s. We had problems. So, you know what I mean? Like I told you guys, we had problems with discrimination and everything else. But when it came to bathrooms were never an issue. The girls just went to the girls' bathroom. They were trans women. They just went to the girls' bathroom. Nobody ever questioned us about that. Nobody made a deal about that. Then suddenly a couple years ago, bathrooms become the big issue. And it's like, okay, well, I don't know anybody that's worried about that. So and if you look at the way those laws were even written, and I had a joke about this for a while, but the laws were written in a way where it was like, if you had a question about somebody, then you can kind of make it a thing. You know what I mean? But like I saw it on the opposite way, if you can make them question the other way, because we've all seen some manly looking women, and you're not going to question them before they go in the bathroom. You're just like, I guess you just built that way. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like, nobody's going to question in most cases. Most people are like, I'll mind my business. As long as nothing creepy happens, I don't care. And I do want to say, though, Ashley Marie Preston from the tweets is a bitch I would actually be able to get down with. Wow. I have fun listening. If you notice, I can't keep a straight face each time you play the clips. I'm just like...
then there's that. I think we should all be, well, not all of us, but yes, I am someone who's waiting for the, I'm waiting for the fame, and then I'm waiting for them posts to come out. Yeah. Luckily for me, white people aren't as bothered as the rest of us, but when my tweets pop up and my posts pop up, just prepare to see more crackers than Ritz. So that's gonna be my, my cancel her, but
I just think this,
we are.
Yeah, I just think it's a very interesting point, that you're making when you talk about how it could be a distraction from very real issues, because in a way it hurts the community when you do that. And I think you made that point. It's like a significant number of the members of this community face very real, say, discrimination when it comes to things like medical, dealing with the medical institution, and, just from transgender individuals even having to maybe even educate medical practitioners on certain things, and dealing with sort of an automatic discrimination or attitude when dealing with them. And that's just one aspect of it. So, I mean, there are really, really serious issues that are worth talking about that seem to be like, whoa, wait, just completely off to the side because of something else, be it political or power grab or something else going on, where we want to talk about Dave Chapelle and, a joke that he told that we didn't like. I think it's just real interesting to at least talk a little bit about that, like we're doing.
Yeah, well, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Ty.
No, I was just gonna say, like, when it comes to I think a lot of the problem also is, in order to really address what the problems are, you have to look at both sides of the problem. And I don't think a lot of times the activists are willing to do that, because then that does take having to look within the community and sometimes be critical of that. Like you mentioned medical specifically, like, yes, doctors do need to be educated on how to deal with trans people. That's true. But trans people have to, at the same time, acknowledge their biology so that the doctor knows all of the factors that he's dealing with. Like, a woman doesn't have a prostate. A genetic female doesn't have a prostate.
Right.
Obviously, a trans woman would.
Yes.
So if you're not acknowledging that, then the doctor could be missing something that he actually needs to be checking out, in thinking that he's just dealing with a woman, and
Facts.
Like in society nowadays, you're not allowed to question. So how's the doctor supposed to find out if he can't ask the question, or if you just don't disclose that from the beginning?
Right. That's right.
I agree with that. It's like, I feel like you're a special group of people, but you refuse to be special. Like, when I hear some of them say, I don't have to tell a man that I used to be a man, I'm like, are you crazy? Like, just for your safety, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, say it. Like, no, they don't need to know. And I'm like, no, don't, like, help me help you. Help me help you. It's dangerous. I think, Ty, what you touched on was, Frank, when I asked you earlier, I said, what do you mean by political interest? And I think that's one of them, because Ty said you have to keep the money coming in. Ty, can you elaborate on that? What do you mean by keep the money coming in? To who? Because I'm always like, follow the money.
Yeah, well, when it comes to these groups, a lot of times these groups are funded not only by, the state or the city, depending on what the situation is with that, but also a lot of times they're funded by the general public. Like, a lot of times when you go to a gay organization or a gay function, a lot of that money is going to a particular group. Well, if they say anything that's going to piss off that group that's going to show up to their function, suddenly those people aren't showing up. So that's who they don't want to piss off, so they do have to placate a lot of times the more, I want to say, just the more ridiculous side of, you know what I mean? Because like, most trans people I know are completely willing to acknowledge their biology and the fact that they are different from, like, a genetic female or male. But then there's some people that would even get mad at me, some trans people that are a little more on the activist side, or further to the left, you could say, that would get mad at me for even using the term genetic, because they would try to argue with me that, it doesn't have anything to do with genetics. And I'm like, well, it kind of does. Even if you don't want to say that, it kind of does. And like, the big thing that drives me crazy is the trans people won't be erased. When they push that all the time, like, you see that all the time, trans people won't be erased. Well, we're not trying to erase you. You're trying to erase you. You're trying to erase you by saying you're the same thing as a genetic female or genetic male, when you're not. You're something different, and there's nothing wrong with being something different. So if we're going to celebrate the rainbow and we're going to celebrate diversity, don't get mad when people point out your diversity. That would be like me saying I'm a proud Mexican man, I'm a proud Latino, and then somebody says I'm Latino, and I'm like, how dare you say I'm Latino? I'm the same as everybody else. It's like, it can't be both. I am different. You know, my experiences are different, my lived experiences. And when it comes to like this situation in particular with her using the word fag over and over, like in her tweets, there's a lot of trans people that think that's completely okay because they consider that to have been a part of their lived experience. So it's like now conveniently you can use that word, which is a slur if anybody else uses it. It's a homophobic slur. But you're telling me that you're the same as a genetic female. You're just a woman. That's all it is. Okay, I accept that. But now you're allowed to use that word because it's also part of your lived experience. So what is it? Are you or are you not? You know, because I would say most women shouldn't use that word in a hateful way because it's not a part of their experience.
I love that point, and that's why I wanted you here, Ty Rivera, best LGBTQ comedian in the world.
In the world.
I wanted you here because you were so, like, you keep it all the way real. And I think it's okay for some people to be confused and not understand. On this channel, I did LGBTQ for Dummies, and I had Ty Rivera on. So if you scroll all the way down, you'll see. And I just asked basic questions that sometimes people have but are afraid to ask because they don't want to offend or trigger. But it's perfectly okay to not know, to want to understand. If you genuinely want to understand, and then be afraid to ask. I think that's terrible because it is confusing. It is.
Yeah.
If there's a 5-year-old who walks in and there's a man saying, call me, you know what I mean, her, and hasn't fully transitioned, you have to explain that to that child, right? Do you not? So we're sometimes the same way, sometimes out of innocence, like, but you look like a guy. I said he, I'm sorry, you know what I mean? So
Right.
there has to be more patience and understanding on both sides. I want to pivot real quickly to something interesting that Dave Chapelle did in The Closer, which I see a lot of people are against as well, which is race. He kind of compared the plight of Black people and civil rights to the plight of the LGBTQ and how can they can be seen equally, and this one side should respect this side. Now, some people hate when you do that, and Black people are like, how dare you, you know what I mean, compare the civil rights and how we're treated and getting killed to someone who supposedly, allegedly chose to be a certain way. Frank, what do you feel about that as a Black man? Do you think there's a comparison? Do you think the comparison is okay? Or are you like, hell no?
Right. Yeah, I think that when that comparison is made, however it's being used, because we're talking about a broad community, and just like one of the first things that you asked Ty was, should everybody be rolling together? The L's, the G's, the B's, the T's, the Q's, the pluses, and the rest of it's like all the rest of the alphabets. It's like, how much synergy is even going on between this group of individuals? So a lot of times they're facing different kinds of challenges or different issues in and of itself. So now you want to compare or at least talk about or make a contrast with this whole community with something like the Black community, or you might even say women's suffrage, other communities who have been marginalized and discriminated against. And if and when they do that, if and when whomever it is wants to, maybe start with that, and we've seen that, we need to be very specific and accurate with the kinds of language. We need to come with a proper understanding of what you're talking about, because as we know, it's real kind of easy to get a little blasé about the history of Blacks in this country, and especially living in the current context where it's not as in your face, no, not nearly as in your face, as it has. And I mean, we don't have to go back too far to where it was a commonplace thing to have Black people hanging from trees, where it was a whole crowd of people just watching, and the whole community came out to watch it. And and it wasn't just this happened every so often. This is kind of a all over the country, a normal thing. And then you go back even further, the kinds of oppression. You just go watch, for some context, you can go watch 12 Years a Slave will be a good movie to watch and read and do the research. So because we're not living it, and because we live in this current context of civil rights and the success or relative success of civil rights as it relates to Black people and then women and other minorities, it's easy to make those comparisons without thinking things through. And if those comparisons are made like that, then it's likely often a mistake. And these comparisons should only go so far. So yes, absolutely. You're talking about some very, very different things when you talk about, again, we talk about the oppression Olympics and the victim Olympics and all that. Some very, very different things. And so, yeah, I think it tends to be improper. We should be really, really careful when we start making those kind of comparisons.
Is it okay to say we've all suffered? Is it okay? Or is it like, you know what I mean? Because it's like, is it okay to say we all suffered? Or does someone have to acknowledge you suffered more than me, though?
I think that
it's okay to say we've all suffered.
And I'll let Ty answer this too as well. I think it's okay to say that different kinds of, horrible oppression, discrimination. I mean, we're not even talking about the other ethnics, like we talk about Nazi Germany and, and then go back even further with, even many more millions of Africans, on the slave passage. And then even before that with other, so I think it's fair to say and bring up that these things happen. I think that when we do, we need to be accurate. I think it is fair to bring stuff up. It is, but just don't, we can't be blasé about it. We got to speak with education, knowledge, and authenticity. We shouldn't be trying to use these as little political bombs or, just throwing stuff out for, for reasons that are kind of underneath the surface, so to speak. That's how I kind of see it. I don't know if Ty sees it in a similar way.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of times the problem is people will use their struggle to minimize other people's struggle. And I see that happening a lot coming from the LGBT community. And I also see kind of an it's our turn type of thing. And it's like, oh no, just because now we're working on this doesn't mean that this has completely disappeared and there's not still work to be done there as well. So it can't be anybody's turn. We just all have to learn to work better together and maybe, maybe be a little more willing to listen to each other. Because I notice, and I hate to call out the LGBT community like that, but I notice a lot of times they don't want to hear what anybody else is saying. Even me, when it comes to the community, because I do sometimes get into it. Like, this is something me and Dave Chapelle have in common, is, in my opinion, and I'm not trying to be like rude or anything, but a lot of times white people are the problem for me. It's just like, you're not understanding that just because you came out as a gay man does not make you now the same as a minority. Because I, as a brown gay man, if I choose to, like I said before, can blend and pretend to be straight. I can't pretend to be white. So it's completely different. One is inescapable. The other is like I can choose whether or not I want to express that part of myself or not, And sometimes people look at me and they're like, you can pretend to be straight. And I'm like, I had to do it when I went to jail.
That counts.
Yeah, I'm just like, I don't want to get traded for ramen. Let me do what I have to do.
That's the big
flavor.
point.
I think you're good for a beef flavor pack.
Yeah, but you don't want to find out if you're chicken,
Comedian Carlos Anthony joined the chat, and he makes a great point. You touched on his, Ty. He said sometimes you have to paint the picture of a similar case for individuals to draw a better picture of what's being said. That is true, because I go through the same thing. Ty, you didn't want to call out the LGBTQ. Sometimes I have this debate with Black people, and I try to tell them the Tainos and the natives and the Indians, it doesn't matter. We were enslaved for 400 years. I'm like, we were slaves too. We were on those slave ships. It doesn't matter. And I'm like, you co-opted I was like, no, the Rainbow Coalition happened because there were so many of us with our own movements going, and we were all separate, fighting our own fights. And then, how dare I forget his name? Rainbow Coalition, help me out.
Yeah, Jesse Jackson.
No.
No, who are you thinking?
Listen, Fred Hampton started the Rainbow Coalition because, the Puerto Ricans was over there fighting their fight and the white people was over there fighting their fight. And these people, that's why that happened. So I'm like, every time I hear co-opt, I'm just like, oh, I get triggered, but I have to stay unbothered like Ty.
Yeah, you do.
And you don't want to do the oppression Olympics, but you want to say, listen, we suffered too. But it's a fine line, like Frank said, but then you can't make this light either. You can't be, blasé about it. But it's like, come on, can we all just get along? Speaking of Jesse Jackson. I mean, I was the guy that got beat up, right? Okay, I'm tired.
Right, King. I got
all right, I'm trying to rush, guys. So
no, don't rush. Take your time. We're good.
Because you have a thing, right?
I do, but I'm gonna see if I can roll as long as we can. So let's do it. Let's keep going.
All right. So while we're here, I see more people in the room. Please, and I'm gonna have these in the captions in case I'm talking fast. I'm Puerto Rican. We have on the panel Ty Rivera. That's Ty, not like Ty, but THAI. He hosts Unbothered on YouTube. He is also a global comedian, the best LGBTQ comedian in the world. I like saying it too.
It's fun.
It sticks. Then we have Frank from Talk with Frank Goodin. This is Objections, and we have a show here on my page, and then Frank, and then me, and then Frank, and then me, and then Frank. It's always Objections, and you can jump on the panel and object fiercely and passionately, but respectfully. I'm going to bring up one more guest. How are we doing on time, guys? Ty, are you good? Or you have to
I'm
run?
good. I have to go in like 20 minutes. Yeah, 6:30.
Okay.
I have to go.
I'm good.
Thank you. So I'm going to bring up, we have another panelist, Mike, and I want to see if he has any objections or he wants to add something. Welcome, Mike. How are you? What you got? Do you have
Mike,
any
what's up?
objections?
Hey, what's going on, people? How you doing, Ty?
Hello.
Good to meet you.
Good to meet you.
Yeah, so I just thought it was interesting when you played the video, and I was listening, and I'm just listening, and in my mind, I'm just like waiting, like, what's the punchline? Because I didn't hear anything, to be quite honest. It just sounded like rambling, and I'm like, okay, what is your punchline? What are we talking about? You know what I'm saying? Because if this is supposed to be off of Dave's special, I haven't heard anything that would even say, okay, here's my dispute concerning what he said. There was nothing specific. It was just a bunch of rambling. And I'm like, okay, I need the punchline. You know what I'm saying? So that was my issue with that one. And I was like, okay, it seems like you were more interested in your 15 minutes of fame than it really was about advocating for any kind of issue per se. And so my question to Ty is, do you think with some of these LGBTQ plus advocates that sometimes there's probably a lot of, shall we say, extremists that probably take it, to a level that it shouldn't even be taken, or they use their extremist ways, just to say, hey, let me stand on my soapbox and just say what I need to say.
Well, yeah, for sure. I think that's what happens in a lot of cases where you do have people that are making, like I said earlier, making problems out of nothing, where it's kind of like, and you ask them specifically to tell you what Dave Chapelle has said that was so dangerous for trans people specifically. And you notice nobody answers that question. They just try to give you an in general. No, I want you to tell me specifically what you think it was he said. If you want us to work on this problem, then tell us what it was the problem actually is. Mm-hmm. Like, you can't just be like, I like Frank talked for a minute a second ago. I can't just say I have a problem with this statement. And then he's like, which part of the statement? Well, just that you said it. It's like, wait, that's not, I can't work on that. Like, what, just not talk anymore? It's like, it doesn't make sense. You have to be specific about what you think it was that he said that was so dangerous. And
Absolutely.
the truth is, he didn't say anything that was particularly, or not even particular, he didn't say anything that was dangerous. It just was a different point of view that they didn't like. And I think that people need to remember, especially people from the LGBT, specifically trans community, need to remember that a lot of America, especially Dave's audience, is evolving with him. If you notice in his specials, he has evolved in the way that he even addresses the LGBT community.
Yes, yes.
So a lot of its audience is learning with him. And as he's becoming more open-minded, they're becoming more open-minded. So he may not be doing it in the words that you want him to do it and at the rate that you want him to be doing it, but he's doing it and he's bringing a lot of people along with him. And he's starting the conversation. That's all Dave Chappelle's special, in my opinion, was supposed to do, was kind of be a catalyst and start a conversation, and then you figure out where you want to take the conversation. It's like a choose your own adventure. I grill every night. If you watch my Instagram stories, I'm always grilling. Well, I start the fire. I can't expect the fire to cook the steak for me.
So I have a question, right? So with what you're saying, and I guess clearly we both agree, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my question to you is, do you think on a larger scale with the community who are not the extremists, do you think at least at some point the community is going to have to say, wait a minute, we're going to have to hold these people accountable? And how do you think that they're going to say, hey, we need to check you?
I wish they would, but that's like any other political group. You see it happen with Democrats and Republicans too, where it's like the majority don't really agree with what the top is talking about. Is the average person really worried about abortion, which is something that comes up over and over as like a hot button issue? Because to me, the average person doesn't seem to be the main concern with most people. But that always becomes like the big issue. It's always about abortion. And it's like, okay, well, I don't really know who's worried about abortion like that. But for some reason, the leadership always makes it seem like this is a thing. The average person won't think that's a big deal, but also won't fight it either, because it's easier to sit back and just do what you do instead of take on this fight that, in a lot of cases, you don't really care either way about. And I think that that's what a lot of the LGBT community does, is they're like, okay, I'm just going to work on what I think is important, and I'm going to let them make that their issue, because if I make that, if I try to stand up to that, then I'm going to be called all sorts of names and be told I'm transphobic. I've been told I'm transphobic just because I didn't go with the groupthink on this Dave Chapelle situation.
That's a great, Mike, that's a great point. Because that's a great point, because I was thinking it's kind of like the police department, right? Where people say, well, not all are bad. And then someone says, well, then the ones that are good better speak out, so we know they're not all bad. And I think that goes to your question, is like, when are the members of the community, of the LGBTQ community, going to come out and say, hey, we're not all like that? You know what I mean? Is that something that we should expect? Also tied to your comment about the special, it's poetic, because I feel like, and some people may disagree and object, and that's cool, I feel like Dave Chappelle's The Closer was more advocacy for transgender women than that woman we just saw, Ashley Marie Preston. I see that he's humanizing that. It was damn near a love letter. The last 30 minutes of The Closer is like a PSA love letter to transgender women. I don't see how anyone can see anything else, but I get it. I just object to if you saw anything else. It was damn near a love letter. Afterwards, I wanted to run out and hug a transgender woman, be like, have I ignored you? I'm sorry. You know what I mean? Are you feeling suicidal? Let me help. That's what his monologue gave me. I just don't see how anybody can see something else unless they have an agenda. OG Patrice is in the building on the panel, very patient, and I want to hear what she has to say. Welcome, Patrice.
Hi, how's everybody doing?
Doing good.
Hello.
Good. Okay, so I'm late getting in, but I have caught the last 15, 20 minutes maybe. And very interesting conversation. I really like Ty's perspective. I like the fact that he's very open, and his just the things that he's saying, just, you know, it kind of lets me know that he's that person that will be open to sit down and have the real conversations like we're doing now. So thank you for that, and shout out to you for that.
No, thank
Now,
you.
you're welcome. I don't know if you guys had covered this prior to me coming on, but my perspective of Dave Chapelle, I agree with what Jen said. I thought that, you know, the last part of what he talked about was really like wanting to find, you know, wanting to, like he was saying, you know, peace. I come in peace. And I'm really on your side, and I get it. And I'm not mad, but I want you guys to know that I'm not mad, and you shouldn't be mad either. As a comedian, I totally get his perspective, right? Because most comedians say things that are, you know, way far, like a lot of things we think and people don't say, or things that are not as popular, things that are controversial. And it is, certain things have gotten by for so many years. We all have been the butt of jokes as far as a race. Black people have, Hispanic people have, white people have, Asian people have, as far as like things that we do culturally, or just little jokes, you know, regarding our race and things. And it has never been a problem. So Ty, what do you think this sensitivity has come in from the perspective of, you know, when you say anything that the LGBTQ plus A plus, I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot. Don't worry about it. The plus covers all of it for me. I'm
community.
Just like plus.
Yeah. So so where do you think, like, really, like, the sensitivity kind of started? Because I'm in entertainment, right? And I have friends, right, that are in that community. I have relatives that are in that community, for crying out loud. But there seemed to have been a shift in the sensitivity. And where do you think that come from, and whose side you think it started on first, if I may ask that question?
Yeah, I think it comes from insecure people, honestly, that haven't learned to accept themselves. That's what I think it is. Because with me, people can say anything they want about gay, and I can take it or leave it. You know, I'll just be like, that's whatever, you know, it's a different opinion or whatever. But I don't get upset about it, because I'm secure in what I am, and what you think of me doesn't change what I think of me. And I think that right now, there's a lot of newbie LGBT that are real gung-ho and think that it's a sign of strength to not take anything in and only be outgoing, which isn't the way conversation or growth works. You have to take in some of what people are saying. Like, one of the biggest issues I have with trans specifically is when trans people say it's not my job to educate people on what it is I am. Okay, I agree it's not your job, but then whose job is it? Because I, as a gay man, and more specifically a gay comedian, a lot of times, because of what I'll talk about on stage, which is, you know, including my life and my dating and stuff like that, people will have questions about gay. And I could take the attitude like Will and Grace was on in 2003. People should already figured this out by now. Or I can be like, let me take this opportunity to talk to this person to person, let them know what I am, give them my social media information, then they can follow me on social media. That humanizes me even more for them. And then, in a sense, I am educating them, even though I'm not doing it word by word or with the textbook.
Awesome. May I ask you another question?
Sure.
What is your opinion? And I'm sorry if I'm repeating something you guys have already talked about before I got on, but what is your opinion? Do you really think that the cancel culture exists, and what is your feelings on that, on the cancel culture, when someone says something about the LGBTQAI plus community?
I think cancel culture does definitely exist, even though people always try to say it's not a thing and it doesn't exist. Okay, a lot of people have lost their jobs because of cancel culture, and I see both sides of that. I see where it's important in some cases when somebody really is out of line and refuses to have any kind of conversation and just wants to literally spread hate. And then I see where it's been weaponized, and it's like now this thing where you're going to say everything exactly the way I want you to say it. And if you don't deserve to have a job. You don't deserve to have friends. You should be completely ostracized from society. So I think that, it works both ways. Like it can be a very, very effective and important tool in forcing somebody to understand that, yeah, you can't actually spread hate. But at the same time, if you're going to have that power as a community, you need to be just in the way that you dole that out.
Okay.
Hello, Patrice, you there?
You kind of.
It says you muted yourself. I'm trying to unmute you, but it says.
Yeah.
Patrice,
She's kind of caught in the matrix.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we got you.
Okay. Do you think the baby should have been canceled for his comments made?
Do I think he should have been canceled? I think he definitely needed some education on the way that AIDS and HIV work. I think that was something that definitely needed to be addressed. I don't really know that everything needed to be canceled. With the baby, if I were anywhere close to him, the only thing I would have cautioned him against was the doubling down. If I were him, I would have gone the route of I was entertaining, I was in the moment, I was on stage, maybe I said some stuff that I shouldn't have said, or maybe I, said some stuff that I wasn't the most educated on. Like that is the way that I would have gone with it, or the way that I would have advised a person like the baby that had said something like that, rather than be like, I said what I said and it is what it is and you could take it or leave it type of thing, because there are people that are sensitive to that. At the same time, I thought it forced a very important conversation on people, because there are a lot of people that still think that AIDS and HIV are a death sentence. When if you know anything about the way that the cocktails work and stuff like that, like AIDS and HIV, or HIV specifically, is not a death sentence at all anymore. It's actually a very manageable condition.
I have a question for Ty.
Go ahead,
Go
Mike.
ahead.
Okay. So my question is.
Hold on, 1 second. I'm sorry, Mike. 1 second. Patrice, we're getting some kind of feedback, and I don't want to mute you, and then if you're talking, we can't hear you.
Okay, I'll just mute until I'm ready to speak.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Anybody
Thank you.
entering? No problem. When I see people coming in, please subscribe, hit the notification bell. And if you're wondering who these people are on the panel, it's Frank, Ty Rivera, Frank from Talk with Frank Goodin, Ty Rivera from Unbothered, and he's also the best LGBTQ comedian in the world. I'm going to keep saying it, Ty.
In the world.
We got OG Patrice, and we have Big Mike. And I will have in the comments the links to everyone's YouTube pages if I'm going too fast and you're like, who was that? Who was that? All right. So welcome. Hit subscribe. You already know the deal. Mike, go ahead.
Okay. So my question is, do you think, okay, here's my question. Do you think the same way that the transgender person, I forgot what the person's name was that was going on the rant. What was that person's name?
Ashley Marie Preston.
Thank you. Do you think Ashley was using the word fag, like y'all were talking about? Do you think that, they're just kind of using that word? It's kind of like the equivalent of how these days, like with Black people and certain people, how they use the word, or shall we say, they use the N word, even though it's derogatory, but these days they seem to use it, almost as that's kind of the norm. And even with certain white people who they know each other and they also use it, but even though because they know each other, they take exception to say, okay, well, at least I know where you're coming from versus a stranger. So I'm asking, do you think that's the equivalent of why they're using the word fag towards each other?
I really feel like listening to those tweets because, like, one, I know I shouldn't, but I think those tweets are fun. I think I just like, I could have tweeted those,
Right, right.
And so, like, I think she just
Right,
was having a moment of frustration, and she
right,
knows she's a part of the community, or knew she was a part of the community and could get away with it, and nobody's going to
right,
make a big deal of it. And yeah, I do think it was just like that, basically, just from being part of a community and being like, okay, I'm just going to say this because I'm allowed to. And then years later, this happens. I want to address something that's on the chat right now, from Waski Wabbit. There's a part where he says, like, the baby shouldn't have been canceled because of freedom of speech. I fully get that. I fully understand what you're saying. And I'm a big free speech person. But where that has a line in the, like, this country in particular, is once sponsors are involved. Like, he was at the Rolling Loud Festival when he did that. He wasn't putting on his own personally produced show. So it really isn't a freedom of speech issue at that point. At that point, it's a matter of what the sponsors want to be involved with. So and that's who they put the pressure on. They don't put the pressure on the baby, even though they tweet at him quite a bit. If you notice, it starts off like that. It starts off like, the baby is this type of person, the baby is that type of person. And then they go to, like, say, AT&T or whoever it was that's sponsoring that event. And that's what causes a cancellation, because then AT&T gets like, well, we don't want to be involved with that speech, and we want to make it clear that we're distancing ourselves from that. And that's where it goes from, like, freedom of speech to actually hurting a brand.
Okay. I want to touch on something you said, Ty, that's important for us to realize. Although we're talking about being triggered and offended and canceled and all that, we have to acknowledge that we are living in an age of hypersensitivity, and some of it is indeed ridiculous. And I want to go back to something you said, which is what I think Bolo TV and also Jabari mentioned last show, where it's like a lot of people who have unresolved issues, whether it's self-hate. I think Patrice mentioned this before too, whether it's they needed therapy, whether it's that they're easily triggered, or they have, other trauma. They come online, or they go to concerts, or they go to, stand-up comedy shows, and they already have this thing, that they're carrying, this trauma they're carrying. So then they make anything that even sounds like it's going anywhere near their problem into a huge deal, when in my opinion, it isn't. You're just coming in already loaded, fully loaded, cocked and loaded. So some of it is ridiculous, but like I said, if you have sponsors, you have responsibilities. Now, if the baby was saying that in his backyard, then, then it's a different conversation, I think. So freedom of speech is, it's a broad stroke, but not so much.
Yeah, it's something that you have to keep. It's something that I have to keep in mind, even at my level, where it's like sometimes people don't want to be associated with certain things I say. So I make the choice to either say that, and yeah, I do have freedom of speech, but they also have the freedom to separate from my brand because they don't like what it is I'm putting out there. And that's something you just have to accept if you're especially going to be in the public eye. You have to accept it.
Time to ask a question.
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
What was your opinion on Flame Monroe's commentary on CNN?
Oh, Flame Monroe is one of the people that I like the most in the community. And I think she, like, whether I agree with everything she says or not, I do think that she's a very important voice. And I think that she's one that should definitely be listened to, because Flame Monroe, I heard about her before I even started doing stand-up. I've been doing stand-up for 18 years now. And she was out as a trans woman 18 years ago working in Atlanta. And so, Atlanta, Chicago, like any place that had a heavy Black population, Flame was working there. And so Flame had to deal with the discrimination of being Black as well as being a trans woman at a time when nobody was out and open about that. So I think if there's any voice that the community in general needs to be listening to, or at least, you know, you don't have to hang on every word she said. Like I said, like I don't even agree with certain things she says. The stuff that she said on CNN, I definitely did agree with, and I especially like that she pointed out that she had 3 dogs in that fight. You know, was the way she put it. And she was like, "I'm Black, I'm trans, and I'm a comedian." It's like, what other voice do you want to hear from? You know, when we're talking about a situation that happened in stand-up comedy regarding the trans community and from a Black man. So it's like all 3, you know, but people were mad at Flame for her appearance on The Breakfast Club because of the language that she chose. And if you watch The Breakfast Club, you know, Flame identifies as he, she, we. You know, that's
Right,
like her
exactly.
thing is
But
she's he, she,
Flames,
we.
right? But also you
Yeah,
have to take into
I
yeah. But let's
no,
take
no,
into
I'm just
consideration.
gonna.
I'm sorry. Let's take into consideration that, you know, the point that Flame was making was to say, listen, I'm just here to say, here's my truth. I'm not here to say, you know, being transgender in this manner, you have to be politically correct in this way. See what I mean? And that's all it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah, well, my point that I was making with Flame identifying as he, she, we, you know, the Breakfast Club is a traditionally hip hop audience. That's a lot of what listens to
Yeah.
Breakfast Club. And in a lot of cases, if you look at the problems between trans and the community in general, a lot of times it is trans and the hip hop community where you have a lot of the miscommunication and a lot of the, you know, like disrespect and what's going on there. Well, you have people that are resistant to referring to somebody that was born a male as she, and then you have Flame Monroe come on as he, she, we. And then if you look at the comments on the time that Flame appeared on Breakfast Club, a lot of people in their comments are like, I may not agree with he, she, we, but I like what she's saying right now and that kind of stuff. And it's like, so you have trans people saying that they can't get people to respect the one pronoun that they want. And then you've got Flame Monroe go on and get these people to use all 3 of the pronouns that she prefers that they use. So is she more of an effective speaker, or is the person that's shouting online that nobody's listening to the more effective speaker? So
I love me some Flame Monroe.
oh yeah, I love her. I think she's so
Patrice,
great.
you were saying something, and then Ty, I want to ask you something about Flame Monroe.
Sure.
Yeah, no, I was just happy that, you know, that he really said something nice about her, because she is an associate of mine. We go way back from Chicago days when I used to go watch Flame at the Baton Club. So yeah, I'm glad that you have that perspective and you're open. And Flame has always been that way. I'm gonna really be honest. Flame has always been that way, and I mean, just as a Black person, she's faced that discrimination. Then as a Black transgender, she's faced that discrimination. So she decided to put all of that together, the he, she, we, because I mean, she's been in the community. She's a comedian. She's all of that. So I think that somebody within the community to have break it down like that and put it in a perspective to make all of us think, I thought it was a really wonderful idea. So I'm glad that she actually gave that perspective, because I was hoping that it gave everybody in general, really put your thinking caps on and let's be critical thinkers about all 3 of those perspectives.
Yeah, well, Flame, because I mentioned I've had trans friends since the 90s. Flame was somebody I heard about from my trans friends back then, and she's still close with a lot of the people that I know. So I haven't actually met her, but we have mutual friends, and she's like an actual down trans person. Like she still goes to like the pageants. She still hangs out with all the trans girls that she came up with. You know, Flame is a very like, for me, like, you know, for when you're a person that comes from my background and the people that I've known, Flame is a person that for me is like of the community. You can't get, in my opinion and my experience, you can't get more of the community than Flame Monroe.
She should be the leader, not the Aretha Franklin impersonator. No,
I think she would help us out a lot more. I really do, and I think she'd address things that actually matter. You know, I like, but if you notice, she's also very comfortable with what she is. She acknowledges that she is a man. Like she said that on Breakfast Club. She was like, you know, I spend however many hours a day. I think she said, because some people were mad at it, she said something like, you know, I'm a part of the LGBT community for 4 hours out of every day. You know, which is like a lot of us. Like if you think about how much time you have to dedicate to activism, no matter who you are, you probably are only what you are to society for about 4 hours a day, and you're the rest of the day you're just a person trying to get through it.
Question: do you think Flame Monroe should be the one to check Anna?
I don't, you know,
That's
yeah,
a good
Ashley,
question.
yeah. The people like Ashley, I would tell you, they don't listen to anybody. They're really thick. You know, they're so full of their own thinking that they can't let anything in. And they do themselves and the community a disservice, in my opinion, because when you listen to people, I always tell people this, and it's from my actual experience, and I find myself having to do it a lot of times. Like, you have to listen to people just past the point where they trigger you. So anytime you think to get triggered and get mad, if you keep listening, you'll notice that almost immediately after, and this is very consistent for me, almost immediately after they'll say something that you agree with, and then you'll be like, oh, okay, well then let me work with the part of you that I agree with. And then if we have disagreement on something else, maybe we can come back to it later, or maybe we don't even need to make that a thing ever, and we can just be friends in spite of the fact that we both think differently. My mom, I've been out since I was 16 years old. I came out as gay. My mom still thinks that one day I'm going to meet the right girl.
Oh,
Right.
wow.
Yeah, but you know, I just
Right.
put that aside. It's not something we argue about. She has her feelings. We don't talk about it. I don't talk about, you know, the fact that I just let her think what does it matter? You know, I don't,
So
she's
I
not
have one more
deciding
question for
anything.
you. I have one more
Yeah.
question for you. So
But
don't you think?
let me just say, wait, Mike, wait a minute. Let me just say, Ty, you've been so gracious, and I feel like we're kind of like you're being like the spokesperson for all things gay. So thank you for being gracious and answering these questions. Mike, go ahead.
Yes, I just wanted to ask this one question. That's all. Don't you think with the LGBTQ community, by them not saying anything, it's kind of like saying, well, if if you're willing to fall for anything, you know what I mean? That type of saying.
But which part do you think they're not saying anything? Because I personally think they're saying too much. So when you
Well,
say they're not saying anything, like which part of not saying anything?
well, and that's why I'm asking about with this person that we as you're saying on the large scale that the community is saying, look, we don't agree. So if they don't agree, then it would seem to me that the community at large should be saying, no, we need to check you so that that's not a reflection on us.
Yeah, but you
You see
know,
what I'm saying?
there's too much money coming in to piss off a person. Like she does have everybody's attention right now, and a lot of people publicly are supporting that. And so, like, you think about it, gay pride just passed here in just a couple weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, I think it was, that we had gay
Right.
pride here in Las Vegas. Well, if you come out against what it is she's saying, and you're in any way associated with gay pride, especially if you're the official festival,
Mhm.
you're going to take a huge hit in the amount of money that you're able to bring in.
Wow.
And I don't
Yeah.
think it's I don't think that I think it's an unfair ask. You know what I mean? The Latin community is huge, right? And if there are 5,000 Latins feeling a certain way and saying something that I'm against, and I'm not that type of Latin, I can't hey, I'm not going to advocate for an entire population. They have to do what they do, and I have to do what I do. I'm not about to go, you know what I mean? I'm not about to war with them about that. That's the life they chose. Everybody has to do what they do in this lifetime. So I tell people all the time, I can't speak for all Puerto Rican women, Latinos, women from the Bronx. I can't speak for all of them. You just have to meet me, get to know me, and then you decide after that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Did you have a question, Jen? Did you say you had a question you wanted to ask?
I did. Yes, thank you. When you said Flame Monroe, like some of the things you don't agree with, was there anything in particular that stuck out that you were kind of like, nah, maybe not?
This is where I lose everybody. It's almost time for me to get out of here anyway. So like, I'm gonna say this and I'll be like, bye. I love you guys. Don't forget I was nice. I voted for Donald Trump, and Flame is very much against that. I've seen her speak out against that a lot, where she's really been like hard on, you know what I mean? You're an idiot if you vote for Donald Trump. And that's one where I have to just be like, okay, well, I guess Flame would maybe think I'm an idiot. But I personally, like I said, because we have so many friends in common and stuff like that, I do feel like if I met her and she actually got to know me, we'd be fine. But, you know, I think I could have some good conversation with her. And someday I'll have to make that happen. You know, I'll have to either make it out to one of her shows, or hopefully she'll come out to one of mine. You know, I'll invite her out. I don't think she's that opposed. You know, I think she'd be cool.
Let me just say, can I respond to that? Because I brag about being your friend, Ty, because before you, and what he says is the truth, because before you, never in a bajillion years that I think I could be a friend, but a good friend, to a Trump supporter.
Yeah,
there's no way in hell. I don't care what's going on. They could be on fire and I would have pissed on them. And then I met Ty Rivera. And I was like, damn it.
Yeah, that's why I said I'm gonna lose everybody. But I do got to get out of here. I got to start getting ready. I'm at the Laugh Factory tonight again. So thank you everybody for listening to me. And LJJRN, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And yeah, it was good talking to everybody. I hope to be on the show again in the future. And Patrice, my OG Mike, was it?
Yep.
Yeah,
Good
OG
to meet you.
Mike.
Good to meet you. I'll subscribe to you.
Frank.
Yes,
Jen.
Ty, thank you so much for
Thank you,
answering
Ty.
the questions and just having this open dialogue. I think that more of this really needs to be done to bridge the gaps of the communities in general as a whole. So thank you so much.
No, I agree.
And
Thank you.
I want to say thank you because, like, this shit has gone on for far too long.
I agree.
Like,
yeah,
every time there is somebody else introduced into the world, there's hatred.
Oh yeah.
Okay, he got to go now, so let him go if you got to go.
Thanks, guys. I'll see you later. I appreciate you.
Dive in. All right, he was ready.
He was so amazing, guys. His name is Ty Rivera. It's THAI, like Thai food. Ty Rivera. He really is an amazing comedian with lots of credits. He's not an Instagram comedian. Nothing against Instagram comedians. Please don't write me and blow me up. I'm just saying he has a lot of credits to his name. He's been on TV and all kinds of stuff. I'm going to put his information in the caption. His name is Ty Rivera, and he does a show called Unbothered on YouTube, but he does a lot of comedy all over the place. So I'll leave that.
Yes,
there.
please do, Jen, please. And then when I come to Vegas, we can go check him out if he has a show.
Patrice is coming.
I'm coming.
Welcome, DJ Distinct, to Objections. Do you have an objection, or did you just want to add or take something away from what you heard so far?
I mean, kind of both.
Okay.
I kind of have, like, what Ty was saying was on point. You know what I'm saying? Like, he was like, Dave was not in any way, shape, or form, you know, misrepresenting or anything. But then I have an issue with those that are. You know what I'm saying?
No, actually, I'm unclear with what you just said. The first part, cool, but not the second part.
Well, the second part, I have an issue with those trans people that take Dave offensively.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm like, he fucks with everybody. Like, why can't he fuck with you? You know?
Right.
I agree with that. It's kind of like Patrice said, like, we've all gotten it. And not just from Chappelle. Let's be clear. Not just from Chappelle.
No, we've gotten it for years, dude. From every fucking body.
Yeah.
From everybody. And we took it in stride. And it kind of made us stronger. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
like it kind of made us stronger. And like what I see these days is a bunch of weak motherfuckers that like want to have the world go totally their way 100% of the time. And that's just not, that's not an option. The world doesn't go your way 100% of the time for anybody.
You know what? It's kind of interesting. I wonder, can anybody on the panel remember the last time there was a controversy about a joke being told, say other than Dave Chapelle, and who raised the controversy and what happened? Because
Dude,
we get it so, like you said, everybody gets joked about. So it makes me wonder, when's the last time that happened?
Richard Pryor, it didn't happen. Eddie Murphy, it didn't happen. Like Eddie and Richard are two of the
Giants.
I mean, they're fuck
giants.
with everybody.
Right. And we just keep going. Chris Rock,
we're just like, oh well.
George Carlin.
George Carlin.
You know,
but like seriously, can we think of a time when it did happen? Because I'm like, seems like I remember maybe it happening, but I'm trying to remember because I think you're saying something when you say, "Hey, everybody
I can
gets
think of
it."
a couple of times.
Okay, like what do you remember?
Well, obviously there was, like for example, there was the joke that Ellen made, and she got heat for it. Kevin got
Wait,
heat
what was
for
that?
it.
Wait,
Oh, this was this was I think what 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she made some sort of a joke, and
But we were already in the cancel culture environment 5 years ago.
Right.
But I'm still wondering about that.
No, but
what was that joke?
I was answering the question. You
Yeah,
see
what
what I'm
was that
saying?
joke?
So yeah, so it has happened before. I mean,
Wait, what was the joke? That's what I'm asking.
Oh,
Do you remember the joke?
I can't remember the
okay,
here I have it. Ellen DeGeneres sparks backslash after a joke joking that self-quarantine is like being in jail. Is that it?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What in the heck okay, so at least it wasn't about a particular group of people.
Right.
It just happens so rarely that I think that's just an outstanding
it still
point.
answers your question.
Yeah, it does. I'm not coming at you, Mike. I'm just saying.
No, I know you're not. I know that, but I was just saying it answers your question.
I'm just saying it's an interesting point to be made and a really powerful one that my boy here is making when it's like, again, everybody gets joked about. So what makes this community so special? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the last one I remember, and I was a teenager, but specifically in regards to the LGBTQ community, and it was something taken out of content that but again, this was years ago, so cancel culture was not as prominent. Well, actually it didn't exist, but they did try to come for her, and that was Donna Summers. She said something years ago.
What did she
years
say?
ago? I again, it was so long ago I can't even remember, but it was something, and I thought, I said, and again, she said it was taken out of content, because if you think about it, Donna Summers and Diana Ross, the LGBTQ community loved those two women.
Yeah.
So when it came out that she said something against the community,
Studio
I was
54.
like, well, what in the world did she say? Because like, they love her and Diana Ross. Like when I go to Diana Ross concerts, the transgenders they all got the front row seats, like on lock. That's how much they love Diana Ross.
Right, because remember that their careers were built off of of that community. Believe it or not.
Yes, I believe that. Yeah. Right. So I forget what it was that Donna Summers actually said in an interview, but yeah, they were like trying to come for, but they, it was wrote about, I think for a while. She cleared it up, and then it was just like left alone. But yeah. But that show you how long ago I remember anything specifically being allegedly said about that community. But yeah,
Right. It's just interesting.
Okay.
it
I
is
thought you
very
were
interesting.
about Frank. I thought you were talking about like before the whole cancel culture.
Kind of just in general. No, I was just because it happens so infrequently.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I was just looking up Andrew Dice Clay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
And how he was banned from a couple places. He was heavy with the jokes. Like he'd make fun of rape and Jews, ovens.
The R word. Uh-huh.
Jews and ovens, and he was really
yes,
bad.
I remember it.
Oh.
He was really bad. But you know,
Yeah, he was very controversial. Yeah, he's very controversial, and he actually had a long run in Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
So,
he still is very controversial.
Yeah.
I mean, he was on, I want to say, The Breakfast Club 6 months ago, talking mad shit to Charlemagne, you know?
Wow.
Like Charlemagne called him washed up, and he showed Charlemagne that he was definitely not washed up.
Wow.
Wow.
He told Charlemagne one time you couldn't even sell out your living room. He was like, I sold out Madison Square Garden. You couldn't even sell out your living room.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
It's funny.
Interesting.
We definitely need them to be able to take jokes, the community.
That's all it comes down to, is just being able to put your personal feelings aside and just laugh at yourself. That's all it really comes down to, is laughing at yourself.
Right.
You know?
If everybody else can do it, then they should be able to do it too.
We have another comedian on the panel. Another comedian on the panel, comedian Carlos Anthony out of Las Vegas. Do I know you, boo?
No, yeah, I think you do. You may.
What's up?
What up, Los?
Everybody, I just want to pop on here real quick because I too have to get to a show. But to answer Frank's question about when was the last time there was anything of this nature going on, I have to speak on it. I think we can't name, if you can't name one, if we all can't come together and name one in general, then it hasn't happened to this level. We're just living right now in such a hypersensitive time that everybody, I shouldn't say everybody, a lot of people just want to feel like their case is more stronger than everybody else's. And so it's one of those situations now where I don't speak for the LGBTQ XYZ LMNOP community. However, I have to understand that there's a group that it's like, man, we don't want to be bothered with that. They don't have anything to do with our plight and us getting better as people within our community. And then there's the people that are like, man, we want the praise and everything. I want you to feel our pain. And it's like, we understand. We understand, especially from an entertainment perspective. We have to tell the story. We have to be the voice for those people who don't have a voice.
Especially from a Black perspective, though, we understand their fucking pain. You know what I'm saying?
So I had no issues with the Dave Chapelle special, of course, but I'm a Dave Chapelle fan. But I took myself out of that perspective of being not only a comic and a fan, but just someone who just wanted to see what he had to say. And so anybody who was really offended by that, I think you have to take that up with yourself. That's a you problem. It's not a we problem.
Right.
I
agree.
I agree with that, because it sounds like a lot of the stuff that when I say my opinions online, they're literally my opinions and my point of view. So I'm like, you're coming on my page to see my point of view and get offended by my point of view. It's bizarre to me when it's as easy as unfriend, block, unfollow. It's bizarre to me. You're coming into my space to get offended by my opinion, and my opinion is just one person, just me. So
it's funny that that you can say something about a celebrity and they'll come at you as a fan, and you will think that they literally know this person, related to this person. You have personally offended them, and they are doing this for people that don't even know they exist in the world. They don't even know that you exist, but here you are rocking so hard to defend them, to literally you threaten people's lives over celebrities that you probably have never met, probably never will, and they don't know you exist. That's how serious it is.
It's a very slippery slope. It's a very slippery slope.
I say we keep saying what we want to say until we can start getting endorsements and stuff.
but has this country always been that way? Like, seriously, hasn't this country always been that way? Or is this something new? Like, I think that it's always been this way. And social media hasn't really taken effect on the mass media or the mass public. I think the country's always been this way. Like, social media just amplifies it a little bit. But I think that the country's always been this way.
Okay, I agree with that last part. I was trying to see where we're gonna land it, but I do think that social media has been the bullhorn now for everything that's been going on underneath the surface. But I do also have to go back to people being more hypersensitive now because people love attention. I forgot the woman's name that you played the video on, or woman that you played the video on earlier. To me, it's my opinion. She wasn't trying to do anything that was going to affect Dave Chapelle in terms of getting him canceled, because it wasn't about being canceled. It was about, hey, I need my 15 minutes of fame. Y'all come over here because you can't say everything you said and then come back later and be like, well, I can only judge me. We're not judging anybody else. I can only judge me. You can't. What side of the fence are you on? Pick a side. You got to pick a struggle, as they say. Pick a struggle and then live with that.
Yeah, again, it's the audacity for me, for someone to have those points of views of so many other ethnicities and then come on to complain about Dave Chapelle when Dave Chapelle was trying to mend, right? And she came on so divisive, right? So it's like Chappelle's trying to mend. So that's why I said it's poetic, because Chappelle has been more of an advocate for the transgender community and put a spotlight on them that was kind versus what this transgender woman is doing. She started,
but she didn't know that. She didn't know that Chappelle had a friend that fucking committed suicide that was transgender. You know what I'm saying?
Because he's talked about it many times. That means she wasn't listening to Dave Chapelle.
Exactly.
Right.
I gotta get out of here. I gotta get to a show. And I gotta go put some money. I gotta go put some money on apparently on the block Cash App so she can get a smoothie.
That's right.
Bye, Carlos.
Y'all take care.
Later. Good to meet you, brother.
Bye.
Later.
Enjoy what y'all doing.
All right, guys. So this brings it to a close. We almost at 2 hours. DJ, you came in late. We'd like to see you earlier next time. Okay.
I will totally show up. This is the first time I've ever seen this podcast.
Oh, wow. No, we have a one here. It's called Objections. We like people to come in and object passionately as they want to, long as nobody gets called out their name. Sometimes we yell here, but we all calm down and go do our laundry and our dinner. Right?
Yep.
So right. Have you subscribe, and we'd love to see you here early. You came late, but you brought the heat, so that's good. We ended on a nice hot note.
Word, mommy.
Okay. Mike, thank you. OG Patrice,
welcome.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to you coming out here so we can sit.
Of course. I'll be there sooner than you think.
Okay. And Frank, partner, I see you. Don't forget, subscribe, hit the like button. Next objection is on Talk with Frank Goodin's page. Remember, we do one on this side and then one on his page and then one on the block and then one on his page, okay? So subscribe, hit the notification bell so you know when we're on. Hit that Cash App for my smoothie. Don't be cheap. And thank you, everybody in the comments as well. I know some of you guys refuse to come on, but I enjoy your comments, so you know I'm going to read them. So have an amazing weekend. Meet us tomorrow. Well, are we going on tomorrow, Frank?
No, it won't be tomorrow.
Okay. Just subscribe to Talk with Frank Goodin so you know when we're back and you can join us. We enjoy you all as usual. Good night, good evening, good morning, depending on what time it is in your part of the world. Peace out. Objections. Yeah.
Bye.
Peace.
Yeah.
Shout out to the panel. Shout out to the chat.
Yes.
Un beso, mija.
Shout out.
Peace.
Yay, this is fun.
Later.
And we're out.